Hi, I'm Joe Heath.
I'm Toni Heath.
And this is the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon.
Yep, it is.
Today we'll be talking about the 7th serial of Season 2, the 15th serial overall, The Space Museum, which has 4 episodes: The Space Museum, The Dimensions of Time, The Search, and The Final Phase, which aired from April 24th to May 15th, 1965. And today we have a special guest with us, our first returning guest, despite the fact that he's pretty much in every episode, anyway, in a way, technically.
Because that makes sense.
It's the guy who did our theme song, Vincent E.L.
Yay, everyone clap.
Hello.
Hi, Vince.
Hi, this is my favorite podcast.
Yay!
That's my favorite thing to hear.
It's my favorite podcast that you're in.
I have some questions.
We have answers.
Do we? I'm worried.
Okay, first question. Do you understand that all questions are to be fully answered?
Yes.
What is your rank?
Co-host.
What is your name?
Joe.
Do you have the governor's permission to approach?
No.
Have you a requisition signed by the governor?
No.
What is its reference number?
2.
Which unit are you attached to?
This, Toni?
For what purpose are the arms needed?
Revolution!
To pick things up.
I would have said hugging, but has the guard on duty examined your identification papers?
Yes.
What is the current password?
Password 123.
That bit went nowhere.
Did you, write down all of the things that the thing said?
Yeah, I had to listen to one of them several times because they were talking over it.
I don't know if I totally buy the logic behind that.
Oh, I do 100%, because Vicky did it, and I trust Vicky.
She hacked the computer, basically. It was just a very weird way of showing it. But yeah, essentially, it was a computer and she hacked it. I'm hacking into the mainframe. That's how they would have done it on a modern show. And then, wait, I'm almost there. Almost there. And there would have been furious typing.
On a less modern show, it would be a floppy disk.
So that's jumping way ahead.
Yeah, of course. That was like part 3, 4?
4. 34?
3. Part 3.
3.
Of 4.
Of the Space Museum!
I'm here to ruin the show.
I think I've actually seen this one 3 times. I actually saw it twice on my first go-through because I took a break for a long while, and then when I started back up again, I wasn't sure where I was, and then I wound up accidentally rewatching the Space Museum.
It's not a bad episode to rewatch.
That's funny because this is the point where I'm not sure if I've seen the next serial. I think I have. I'm almost certain that I've seen the next serial, and I'm pretty sure I haven't seen the one after it. So I think we're almost caught up to where I am. Because I haven't been watching in a while. I'm gonna have to start watching again to follow the podcast. So I'll be following along in sync, pretty much.
So, Vince, before we jump into this serial, any updates on yourself you want to give the audience or anything? Or?
Well, I am updating myself to a new operating system. No, I'm actually not. I am sort of starting my own podcast.
Ah.
Yay!
It hasn't quite come together. I have recorded one episode, and I'm sort of editing it and figuring out how to put the podcast. Because I don't have like a structure or an idea for the podcast. I just have the recording, and the idea is to put together some content and release it as audio content. So I'll be generating content, and that's the entire subject of the podcast. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I'm going to try to put that together and have that be the first episode, I guess.
But at least you have a solid idea.
Yeah.
Solid premise there.
Yeah, the premise is generate content.
That's so cool that you're starting a podcast. Jez, our guest from the Dalek Invasion of Earth, she's doing a podcast. We're going to be guests in the first episode.
That's fun. You're not going to be the guest on the first episode of my podcast, unless you want to. Then I can probably squeeze you in there somewhere, but it's going to be a long podcast if I do. You can be the guests on the second podcast if you want.
Definitely.
That'd be
I
awesome.
mean, that's what I want to guess on everything.
And anything goes, basically.
It just has to be content.
I'm down for it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, that's...
We're trendsetters.
We have a podcast. Jez has a podcast. Vince now has a podcast. Ben's going to be doing Jump Leads as a podcast. All of our guests are doing podcasts, except for, I guess, Ray and Josh. But
Maybe we should start a podcast network.
But now I guess we should talk about the Space Museum.
Yes.
The Space Museum, which is also the title of the first episode. The Space Museum.
I'm gonna get slightly ahead of things just off the title. So the Space Museum, it's a museum on a planet, but the planet is the museum. It's very confusing because there's one point where they start talking about the planet as the museum, but then they start talking about going back to the museum, and it gets very confusing to me because it looks to me like the museum is just that one building and a few spaceships outside. But they've also talked about the whole planet having been turned into a museum.
And also, why is it called the Space Museum? It's not in space.
Well,
it's
it
on
is.
a
It's on a-
in
it's
the way
on a
that
planet.
all planets are in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but we have museums here that we don't call space museums. Unless it's about space.
Yeah. Well, they do have spaceships outside, so that's, a clue. But I mean, it's a space museum to the human characters, and I think we're supposed to see the show through the eyes of, Barbara and Ian. So I guess to them it's a space museum.
But really, to begin with, it looks like
Cardboard.
wax museum, because everybody's frozen now.
That is the cliffhanger, and how this one starts is everyone just sort of freezes.
Yeah, they're paralyzed around the TARDIS, and it's a weird shot. And then it lands, and they're not paralyzed. It's a very strange visual storytelling there.
The first episode itself is very strange.
I had the hardest time with the, concept of it. Sure. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I kind of enjoyed it, though. It reminded me a lot of The Edge of Destruction, but it didn't keep it up for the rest of the serial.
Yeah.
It just turns into the typical, Doctor Who plot of these guys versus these guys, but...
There's a lot of hand-wave science in this serial.
So basically, they land, and they're not wearing the clothes they were wearing anymore.
I don't understand that entirely.
At no point did I come to an understanding of that.
Yeah, because they note that their ordinary clothes are on, and that's extraordinary. Hey, we're wearing ordinary clothes. That's extraordinary. Or something. And the doctor's like, whatever.
The doctor's like, I don't have the answer for it, so I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend that's normal. Whatever.
And,
Vicky goes to get some water and drops it and then undrops it.
And she
it
gives
breaks
it to the
and
doctor
unbreaks.
to drink, and she looks worried. Maybe you shouldn't be that. What did you say? That water's been on the floor. Maybe you shouldn't.
Well, technically it hasn't been on the floor yet. Because it fell on the floor, but then it reverse fell. It didn't collect it moved back in time or something.
It untouched the floor.
It untouched the floor, right?
Yeah, all of the floor particles are still on the floor. Because it never touched the floor. It hasn't touched the floor yet.
Yeah, I don't understand this time travel, but I enjoy it because it's weird.
I don't believe there's anything to understand here because they're not thinking. They're just throwing stuff out there.
And then she tells everybody that weird time stuff happened, and everybody believes her.
And
I'm so pleased.
But the doctor does not give a fuck.
No, he doesn't care, but I believe you.
He's like, whatever. I don't care about your glass. Who cares?
It's like, that's weird, probably. Don't talk to me about it.
Hey, look, a museum.
Let's go check it out.
Let's go explore the museum.
And when they're leaving, Ian looks worried, and he does this thing with his fists
He puts one...
on top of the other and bounces them back and forth.
It's cute.
It's cute, and I just recently read why he did that, and it was to give some continuity between going from the interior TARDIS set to the exterior TARDIS set. So he's doing it while he walks out the door so that the shots match, and I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, so it's just a little thing there to make up for all the stuff that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yes!
Just threw that in there for you.
And then Vicky's like, hey, come look at this matte painting.
And they're on
Which I feel like those have gotten better, by the way.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad matte painting. It's just really obvious when they get up close to it.
And their shadows are on it.
Yeah, and there's a matte painting and there's a pile of rocks, and the doctor looks at the small pile of rocks, and then he steals Ian's job, and he concludes that the whole entire planet is completely dead, non-existent, extinct, based on that pile of rocks.
I swear Ian looked a little bit offended. Like, that's me.
That's
That's what
my
I do.
So Ian says he has always associated extinction with extreme cold, like the dark side of the moon. What? The dark side of the moon, things have gone extinct? I'm not entirely sure what he's getting at there, because things have gone extinct for other reasons than extreme cold. And the dark side of the moon, as far as we know, has never had life on it.
And Barbara just agrees.
Plus, the dark side of the moon is moving, because the moon is rotating. It's just a shadow.
Life and death is not Ian's expertise.
No. Why do they keep winding up on dead planets? Like, it happened in the...
Well, I don't know, but they're hardly ever right about it.
That's true.
Yeah, they keep thinking that they're dead planets, but they're always wrong.
Dead
They
planet?
jump to
No,
these
full of
wild
Daleks.
conclusions.
Dead
and it's
planet?
like, yeah, sure.
No, you're just really tiny and all the bugs are dead around you.
But Ian will be damned if he lets anyone out-Ian him. So he notes that they're walking on dust, but not leaving any footprints. How could he tell that it's dust that's supposed to be soft if he's not leaving? Like, how would you know if you're not leaving footprints that isn't a solid surface? Like,
I didn't even think about that, and now I'm upset.
I mean, maybe if there was wind, but I don't think there was.
Well, like, maybe it feels like walking on dust, but there are no footprints. Like, that would be unnerving, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. Because we'll get to that. I guess that explanation turns up later.
I guess they walk to the building, which looks really cool. I like the design of the building.
I really like the building. It's
The interior of the museum is kind of disappointing. Like, it just seems kind of like, meh.
like, here are some electronic junk pieces
In a
on
hallway.
pedestals.
Just white walls or gray. Well, I guess it's black and white, so everything's gray. But yeah, it's a very dull gray. There's no details.
But they spent all their money on that, like, weird-looking wall around the door. I've heard this serial was actually kind of really low budget, so that's probably why. But
I'm not very surprised.
apparently the 4-episode ones tended to be cheaper than the bigger serials, I guess.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, Ian decides to continue asserting his Ian status by proclaiming that it appears to be to be the only door, and there doesn't seem to be any way of opening it. Of course, he has looked at exactly one side of this building, and he has not touched the door or looked at it more than he has looked at it, and he has not touched it. He has not searched the door. He has just taken a glance at it, seen one side of the building, and he proclaims that this appears to be the only door, and there seems to be no way of opening it. He hasn't even gone up close to it to see if it automatically opens.
It's just, well, things probably couldn't go right for us. It was probably Ian just being like, TARDIS is broken, let's go back. Like, that's his equivalent of, we can't go in, let's just go back to the TARDIS and leave.
Yeah.
It looks like we can't go in, I want to go home.
And then Barbara notes how fucking weird the silence is. Like, this is a weird silence. This silence is not like other. This silence is silenter than other silence. It's so silent that you can hear it. Could somebody start making sense at some point?
At this point, I was like, they are in Stephen King's The Langoliers. That's what is going on here.
I do not get that reference.
These people are in a plane, and they go through this thing, and they're all sleeping, and when they wake up, everybody that wasn't sleeping has disappeared. And they have to land the plane by themselves, and blah, 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 and they're at this airport, and everything's really silent, and they can't, there's no sound. Nothing, everything seems dead in a way. And it's because you find out they're trapped in a piece of the past, basically. A segment of the past. Basically, and the past gets eaten by these things called the Langoliers. So that's their food, is past moments, basically. And so they just have to sort of get back to current time.
Which is kind of what's revealed to be happening in this episode.
In a way. Yeah, they're in a segment of time they're not supposed to be in.
They've jumped, I mean, we're skipping, obviously, ahead to the end of the episode, but they've jumped time tracks, is the way it's put,
Yeah.
and they're basically seeing a possible future.
Yeah, they're not in sync or something.
They're
Doesn't-
Backstreet Boys.
It doesn't make sense. It makes not sense.
It doesn't explain how they're wearing their clothes, but when it snaps back, they're still wearing their regular clothes, aren't they?
And they're still in the thing and not back in the TARDIS. Well, okay, maybe they're just in a different time, but space-wise, they've moved. So that's what, I
I
don't
know,
know.
but what about something broke somewhere? Because what happened to the ones that were in the TARDIS wearing the clothes that they were wearing? You'd think if it would, snap back, yeah, they would suddenly be in the TARDIS where it all started, right?
Yeah, I think we've established that it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense in a fun way, though.
Yeah, you're kind of. I mean, it's Doctor Who.
Yeah, but it's like they're not even trying to make sense. Like it's like it's some stuff happens.
It reminds me so
stuff.
much of The Edge of Destruction. So much.
Or it's just weird things are happening, and later we'll figure out why and what it all means.
And then we don't.
Which some of the stuff we skipped over. Vicky tries. This is one of my favorite scenes because. The doctor tells Vicky, don't touch anything. And so, immediately, Vicky, goes up and, looks both ways and goes to just put her hand right on something just to be a little shit.
That is later.
Is it later?
They're not even in yet.
Okay.
Yeah, because the door opens and an old synth pop duo with widow's peaks and shoulder pads walks right toward them.
Gary Glitter, right? Gary Glitter.
Well, I was thinking Duran Duran / Flock of Seagulls, but one of them looks like Gary Glitter, definitely. I thought about that later. There's a bit of Gary Glitter in there. So the Gary Glitters, they walk right toward them, and the Team TARDIS decides to hide.
For no reason.
As if they wouldn't have been seen already. And as if there's anything to hide from. As if they know that, we should be hiding.
Well, they're trying to figure out what it is. The doctor already at this point has guessed that it's a museum.
Has he?
I think so. Either at this point or it's coming up. I think the idea's been thrown out there. Once they see the ships, I think the doctor thinks it's a museum. Barbara and Ian are kind of it's a graveyard. And Ian's like, yep, that one sounds sound to me. But yeah, they have no real reason to hide.
But they do, and we see a cartoon cliche, the hiding sneeze from Vicky. And it plays out exactly the cliche way. First, Vicky is about to sneeze, stops the sneeze, and then sneezes.
But then, unlike in those cliches,
nothing happens.
Nothing happens, yeah. So I guess it's an early subversion of the trope.
We're like, whoa, your sneeze didn't do anything. Huh.
I love Vicky. This episode's a good Vicky episode, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like Vicky is the least stupid person in this in this serial.
Well, and the thing about it, too, is that she knows it. She's, getting sassy with everyone else. There's jumping way, way ahead, but just to talk about it, there's a point where when they get in the museum and they're lost, and everyone's like, this way, and Vicky's like, just shut up and follow me. She's not only, coincidentally, the smartest person in this episode, she 100% knows.
Yeah, I think this is the episode where they sort of just solidly decide that Vicky is not Susan. This is sort of the episode where they go, okay, we got to figure out what this Vicky character is that's different from Susan. Because episodes leading up to this, she's kind of been sort of Susan, but not Susan. There's been certain moments where it's she's basically just filling the Susan role. And then other moments where it's no, she's not Susan. She's different. And then it's no, she's Susan. No, wait, she's Vicky. But now it feels like Vicky is really taking shape as Vicky.
Yeah.
And who is not
delightful.
Susan. Yes.
Her chemistry with the doctor is fantastic, too. They're just they're just troublemakers.
They
and I enjoy
are.
it.
They're both the worst, is what they are.
When they're when they're lost and stuff, and Vicky's it's this way, and the doctor's yep, that's exactly what I was gonna say. And... Oh, and then they're cruising around the museum, and they bump into a Dalek!
And Vicky makes fun of it.
She's like...
It looks friendly.
And Ian and Barbara are like, okay, sure, you meet one day.
Though I hope we don't run into one again. Foreshadowing!
The next serial, not the next episode.
That's actually some nice foreshadowing, I feel like.
Yeah, because this isn't the first time, well, I mean, it is the first time. It's not the first time that I've seen where, villains and stuff end up in, museums. And you're it's so weird to see them hanging out there as an exhibit, because they're dangerous.
Yeah, but I thought that was a nice little bit. And also it leads to something that's
fantastic.
One of my favorite First Doctor moments. But we'll get to that.
Is this when the younger synth duo... shows up? Well, I guess they're more of a sort of they're an improv group. They're wearing black
that's
sweaters
what they are, yeah.
and black pants and sneakers. They're wearing tennis shoes, and they are so an improv group. They have the improv group haircuts. For some reason they have eyebrows above their eyebrows.
Joe called them Spocklight.
They have the eyebrows of Spock, but done really poorly. They're curves instead of angular, and they dress like they're going to be doing some beat poetry later on. I know.
They are called the Zerons, and the other guys are called the Moroks. So basically, they're the morons and the Xerox.
Yeah, because the planet is Zeros, right?
Yes, the planet they land on is called Zeros.
Which in my head I was like, do they spell that with an X or a Z? It has to be an X because if it was a Z, it would be zeros.
It's an X. I looked up the wiki to get that fact.
Morons and zeros.
And Team TARDIS hides behind a car motor. That was like a V8 engine, right?
I know nothing about cars.
He doesn't know.
I don't know anything about cars either, but that looked like something out of a car. Like that was a straight up car engine right there.
Okay,
It was I don't know anything about this, but let me postulate.
Let me tell you what it is.
Well, I've seen a car engine. I know what a car engine fucking looks like, and that looked like a fucking car engine. I believe you when you say that it's lower budget, this serial, because that was just someone took that from their garage. That was not a prop. That was a car engine.
Again, at this point, they've pretty much established that they're in a museum.
Yeah.
Just like a run-of-the-mill museum.
Why are they hiding?
Why are they hiding from what is presumably museum staff?
Because they haven't paid permission.
They've just gotten so used to sneaking into places and being places where they shouldn't that they don't know how to, like, look legit anymore.
I'm also going to say, it does turn out that the Morlocks are bad guys that run this museum, and why? What? They don't know how to run a museum properly.
I mean,
if you're going to put all of your patrons...
It's tradition. We'll get to that.
In your fucking exhibit. No one's going to come to your exhibit if you put them in the exhibit. Anyway. But yeah, the Zerons come in and start talking, but they can't hear them.
They can't hear them. They're talking, but it's still silent. The silent silence that you can hear.
But maybe, and then Ian's like, that may be speaking in a higher pitch. Ian just, and I think the doctor's like, yes, it could be, but I don't think so.
The doctor's like, maybe, but...
But because you said it, I'm going to say that's not it.
Oh, Ian.
Because everything that the doctor didn't think of is obviously not something that the doctor is going to think is what's actually happening. Only what the doctor thinks of is what the doctor will believe is happening. If somebody else suggests it, it is not happening.
Unless it's Vicky for some reason. Vicky suggests we go this way, and the doctor's like, yep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Well, Vicky is at least not from the 60s.
She's more advanced.
Aw. We tease Ian because we love him.
That's when Vicky ignores the doctor's
advice. She goes to touch the thing.
I mean, she is so, like, the only reason why she's touching it is because someone told her not to. And that's it. She's just like, I do what I want. Clearly you don't know me at all. And it's adorable. It's a really great scene for her.
And then we spend a little bit too long trying to touch it.
I was going to say, but you can't touch it.
And then Ian's like, well, let me try it. Nope. Can't touch it.
Well, before she even gets to the point where she says, I can't touch it, the doctor is like not even letting her get to that point where she can say that. Because he's just going, I told you not to touch anything. I told you not to touch anything. Anything to touch? No. No, with the touching of things. No touching. And he just keeps going. And she doesn't get a word in. And the doctor is the worst. And then Ian, I think, was like, I'll touch it.
Swoosh.
Which, later on, jumping way ahead, they apparently don't care about that rule anymore when they start straight up stealing exhibits. But we'll get to that.
Team TARDIS hides in plain sight and are again unnoticed and can't hear the passing synth trio.
Yeah.
Which is, if they hadn't pointed out that they thought it was weird that they went unnoticed, I would have just assumed that it wasn't weird. Because it's not like the first time someone's hidden and have been pretty much looked at and the person just went the other way, like, well, no one here. I clearly can't see behind that big post.
Or in the Dalek Invasion of Earth, when the Dalek, straight up, his eye stalk was looking at the doctor. And they're like, that was a close one. No, it wasn't. The Dalek saw you.
You're very upset.
It's a really bad problem with this show of people hiding in plain sight and not being noticed.
And then Ian is like, well, I guess we're invisible. And then the doctor is like, or, because the doctor always has to have an alternative to what anything Ian or Barbara or anyone says. Ian says, I guess we're invisible. And the doctor says, or, we're not even really here. It's like, where did you even get that?
Well, he's really advanced, you know?
Yeah,
he's just pulling things out of his butt.
That's the doctor.
His little butt. So they find the TARDIS, but the Doctor walks through it. Of course, the TARDIS to us looks see-through.
It's already transparent.
It worked with the thing Vicky was touching because it was like a glass thing that you could already see through.
One, you didn't know what it was. It was just a thing.
It could have just been a glass thing.
When you see the TARDIS, you're like, somebody's about to walk through that because...
Yeah, that effect is not quite working here. That was predictable. I don't know how predictable it was to 60s viewers.
I wonder about that sometimes.
Because it's like, would people have been like, hey, that looks transparent? Or would they just have gone, hey, look, it's the TARDIS? Like, how much training do you need to notice that?
That's a good question. Let's go back to the 60s and find out.
That's the wrong sound effect.
Hey, watch this clip. Does that look good to you?
Hey, how'd they do that? That's really cool.
Okay, thanks.
So then the Doctor finds an obvious display in the room, which nobody has noticed yet. Team TARDIS, standing paralyzed.
In little tubes.
Plain sight, and they don't notice.
They notice
themselves standing right there.
It's a nice kind of cliffhanger, though. Like, oh shit. It's them.
It's them. We're here, but we're there, and that's bad, right?
Yeah, but you'd think they would notice the moment they looked around in the room when they stepped into it. But instead, it's like they've spent all this time on the TARDIS, and then like, oh hey, look, it's us.
As previously established, though, no one in this show has peripheral vision. They only do when they're pointing out how weird it is that they're not noticed,
or when they're pointing out. Hey, so do you see that set piece over there? It's not actual. We don't have it. It's really big. It looks probably expensive. That thing. You know what I'm talking about? Everyone over there? On camera?
That's the only time that their vision is pretty good. Otherwise, they can't see shit.
Yeah, no, everybody's got tunnel vision on this show, and I think it might have something to do with the time tunnel. So Vicky points out that time is a dimension that has dimensions. Science! What's that? A dimension that has dimensions.
Although I do like, as much as I was just frowning during like the whole speech, I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't even understand enough to be like, yeah, sure, I will accept this so that I can get on with the plot. Because I don't even understand how it affects the plot yet, so it's just confusing. But I will say that it's cute that Vicky starts talking about it and the Doctor's like, hey, you know things. We should talk about things sometimes. We should talk about science.
And then we got some, like, really cool editing that's, like, leading up to them basically, like, reverting, I guess.
You say really cool editing. I say something straight out of the Confuse-A-Cat sketch.
I don't know what Confuse-A-Cat is, but...
You don't know what the Confuse-A-Cat sketch is?
No.
Go watch Monty Python's Flying Circus all the way through right now, and I'll just sit here and wait. Go watch every episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus, and then we can continue this podcast conversation, because if you don't know the Confuse-A-Cat sketch, you have not watched anything ever. It is a very important sketch.
I have all of it on DVD.
I
haven't had time to sit through and watch it all. It's a lot of it.
I sat through and watched it all the moment I fucking bought it all on DVD.
I got it for Christmas one year, and me and my dad watched a lot of it until my mom said, please stop. Yeah, what's Confuse-A-Cat?
I'll describe the premise of the sketch as I remember it, which is slightly vaguely. Basically, there's this person who has a cat who is bored. Doesn't do anything, just sits there. So, who you're gonna call? Confuse-A-Cat. Confuse-A-Cat comes in like a van or something, and basically puts on a show of confusing editing, weird stuff happening, and stuff that doesn't make sense, just to get the cat to not just sit there. And eventually the cat just goes meow and walks away. And that's, See, describing it does not do it justice, because you have to see it. But that's the premise of the sketch. And the editing is the point that I'm making here, is I have no idea what's going on. It's just weird cuts and images that don't seem to connect. Then it has happened, and everybody's going about their business. Makes me think of Confuse-A-Cat. And the fact that you don't get that reference upsets me, and I'm offended, and I'm going to picket this podcast. I'm no longer a fan.
Oh, no.
Just kidding. I'm still your biggest fan.
That's probably true.
But I am going to pick it.
I didn't understand it, but I liked it. At least it was, like, doing something that I'm not really seen done before on Doctor Who, I guess. It just, like...
Because it's bad filmmaking.
I didn't think so. I mean, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was weird and
To be
interesting.
honest, I can't picture what happened because my brain just kind of went, what? And that's all I remember is one bit.
Yeah, there were some weird cuts, and it cut back to the TARDIS, and they were in the clothing that they were supposed to be in, and then it cut back, and they weren't there, and now they're back in the museum, and...
That's what I don't understand.
And the guards are going towards the TARDIS.
I can't imagine the script saying anything other than some stuff happens for this moment, because I have no idea how else you would put it in a script. Like, some stuff happens.
Some weird shit happened.
And some stuff happened, and then the Doctor's like, we've arrived. Okay, how'd you know that?
Well, because they disappeared in the exhibit. The, exhibit them disappeared.
Oh yeah, that was the last thing that happened in the Confuse a Cat moment?
No, yeah, that's the end, and that's the cliffhanger.
Okay.
Well, at least the cat isn't just sitting there, so that's, something.
I feel like they tried to overcomplicate it and make it weird a bit. I mean, it's not that difficult of an idea. They go to the future, they see stuff, and they have to try to not have that happen. They just don't explain it very well.
I was gonna say, they try to explain
They did it very poorly.
with science, and it makes it more confusing.
Yeah.
Like, if you just said, yeah, we're witnessing a possible future, we're not really
here, we're just sort of...
The basic idea works, it's the execution that doesn't.
Yeah, but I will say, I like the more weird stuff. I don't know, it's something different.
Yeah, I like the idea of
like,
it.
the Edge of Destruction again. I really like the Edge of Destruction. It didn't make any fucking sense, but I liked it. I will excuse some of the shittier plot things if it has, a nice mood, I guess. I don't know. I excuse some of the shitty plot stuff in New Who, too. I'm like, well, whatever. Just go with the flow.
I will excuse it if it's still entertaining. It's more like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm having fun!
Like that one where everybody came back to the TARDIS?
Yes!
And it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and just stuff happening, and it's like, stuff! More stuff!
Doesn't matter, everyone's together and they're happy and I love it. I don't even care that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I am entirely with you on that.
So that's the way I feel about this episode. It doesn't entirely make sense, but I enjoy that they're doing stuff, trying to do weird stuff.
Yeah, and it's a good Vicky serial. So there's definitely good stuff here.
I will say I wish the rest of the serial had kept that weird sort of energy, because as it is, it just kind of deflates.
Yeah, this is the only time we have
episode.
Weird time stuff, and basically everything past this is just them like, well, we can't let that time happen. We can't let that happen, and it's a straightforward story after this.
Yeah, it becomes just another uprising. There have been a few uprisings in these 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's a pretty consistent theme. Revolution.
I'm trying to think back. Okay, so I wasn't alive in 1963, was it?
This serial was 65.
Okay, so 63 through 65. Were there a lot of uprisings happening at the time? I'm gonna say, yeah, there were, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was definitely sort of like...
Well, I mean, in America, there certainly were.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's...
But in the UK, I mean, they could have been commenting on stuff that was happening in other countries, I suppose, because there were probably... Well, I guess there was the whole counterculture thing and the hippies, and that was kind of happening. I mean, I guess revolution was just on people's minds. Say you want a revolution.
Vicky does.
Well, But that was the end of the Space Museum, and we're now into episode 2, The Dimensions of Time, which I don't think this episode has anything to do with the Dimensions of Time.
At all, no.
That was the first episode. All my notes are kind of stupid here. Space guards, eyebrows, still shit.
They're doing small talk, I think.
It's like, what do we do? Should we go? Should we stay? Should I stay or should I go now?
Basically, they're so paranoid, I feel like, throughout this whole episode, where it's like...
They all turn into, a bunch of Hamlets.
Yeah. They're like, I think we should do this, but if we do that, then that's probably the thing that we do that makes us, well, what if it's not? Well, but what if it is, though? And, that's it. That's the rest of the serial.
It's like, I've been watching Heroes lately for reasons, because there's a new thing coming out and I need to catch up. So I've been rewatching Heroes. And anytime that somebody has had visions of the future, it's always like, what if the thing that that we're gonna do to stop the future is the thing that causes the future? And it's that old paradox, and it's like, it's over and over again.
This is why I hate visions. They're never helpful. They're pointless, and they make me mad.
Yeah, it's a plot device that just makes plot happen, and it doesn't really help anyone.
But in order to aid themselves in not having this future happen, they steal shit.
The very first thing they do is they steal a gun.
After saying not to touch anything.
Is that the first thing that happens? I think that there was a slight foreshadowing, I think, of the improv group. I think they're establishing very slightly that they're rebels, and the old Gary Glitter types are tyrants or something.
Right, because we couldn't hear them in the first episode, so this episode you get a little bit more of what they're up to. So yeah, Gary Glitter's bad, Spocklight's good, basically.
And then Ian finds the rifle and starts playing with it because he's a fucking moron.
He's just waves it all around. It's in people's faces. He was making me
And he's making noises.
He's like a child with a toy gun, basically.
Except it's a real gun, and it's disturbing.
But to the point where, like, eventually Vicky just ends up with it. And, like, you don't even, like, it's not like you see it. It's like time passes, and at some point Vicky's, like, leaning on it. And you're like, thank God Vicky has it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know what happened. I'm pretty sure.
I've written down here, Vicky is sensible and says, hey, let's get the fuck out. And the doctor is like, no, because stuff.
Yeah, Vicky's like, let's just go. Let's just go back to the TARDIS, and that will change the future. And then the doctor's like, but will it, though? It's like, yeah, probably.
And then they walk around a bit, and then they're lost. And the doctor's like, no, we're not lost.
I know
the
exactly
doctor's
where
like,
I'm
no,
going.
we're not lost. And she's like, Ian, we're not lost. I just want you to lead. And Ian's like, yeah, sure, I'll lead. And then Ian's like, shit, I am also lost. And that's when, of course, Vicky's like, everyone just be quiet and follow me, please.
Is that when the improv group grabs the doctor?
Yeah, the doctor gets kidnapped by the beat poetry guys. I think his name's Caesar, but whatever. I don't remember the names.
I think I wrote it down somewhere. There's a couple of names. There's Daco, there's Tor, and there's the third one. Who's probably sees something.
Yeah, Caesar is what I heard anyway.
I'll look it up. Space Museum. Sita. Sita.
Sometimes it's hard. The audio quality's not amazing, so you're like, whatever.
Yeah, it's obviously recorded in the 60s and has degraded over time.
So the doctor gets taken by Sita. He's on the ground and he pulls a Vicky. Like,
He's pretending to be knocked out.
and then he peeks. He peeks just like Vicky did in the Web Planet. Then two of the Spocklights leave, and then when they come back, the doctor's gone, and the one dude they left to watch the doctor is all tied up, which I thought was great.
And then Vicky is like, I bet he's been captured, and nobody believes her.
For no good reason.
And then it turns out that the doctor is hiding in the Dalek
In the
tank.
Dalek.
That's the cute thing.
That's one of my favorite.
And he's giggling.
He does an impersonation. He's inside of it, and he's like working the little plunger and stuff. Well, I don't know. I can't remember what he says.
He says some Dalek stuff. And then he pops out and he giggles.
It's one of my favorite First Doctor moments of all time. That's just like beautiful. It's like an iconic moment.
It's adorable.
Just his little head peeking out of the top of that Dalek.
He's so pleased with himself too.
Oh, I love it so much.
It's a fantastic scene. It's one of
What's that line from the Deadpool trailer? I think it's I'm touching myself tonight. I think that's what the doctor is thinking.
Oh.
He's just really pleased with himself.
Oh.
My thing is, it's a Dalek. It's potentially working. Why doesn't he just take the Dalek and use it?
Well, I'm gonna say it's probably not working.
Yeah, it's in a museum. I'm pretty
That's
sure
true.
it's the same thing with, like, even though we're, like, appalled with how Ian handled the gun, it's probably not working.
I think he probably also assumes it's not working. Just based on the fact that it's in a fucking museum. Probably not armed.
And then the doctor gets out of the Dalek and is like, well, I'm a genius. Ha ha ha. And then immediately gets caught by
The actual
Morlocks.
bad guys, by the way.
He's giggling and clapping his hands. Way to be stealthy, man.
I think that's one of my favorite things in Doctor Who is when the Doctor's so busy being pleased with himself that he gets into worse trouble. It happens to him a lot.
Yeah, the doctor gets captured by the actual bad guys. And
Yeah, the Gary Glitters. Gary Glitter, of course, actual bad guy.
true. Meanwhile, the TARDIS crew are like Hansel and Greteling their way out of here.
Yeah, but Ian just fucking straight up takes Barbara's cardigan. He doesn't ask for it. He just fucking pulls it off her.
He takes it and he's all like, he's like, we're gonna unravel it. And Barbara's like, what? That's a nice cardigan. You could ask. And he's like, oh yeah. Can I? Yeah, I guess.
And Ian's like biting into it.
And he can't do it.
He's trying to just rip it through like sheer strength. You're right, this is a really nice cardigan. I know. Very strong.
So then Barbara has to do it.
Yeah, eventually Barbara's like, just give it here. It was a good idea. I am sad for that That scene I like.
And by the way, Hansel and Greteling it is not what they're doing.
Well, I mean, they're leaving a trail behind so that they can...
Yeah, but they're labyrinthing it. They are minotauring it. And that's what they say as well. That's the actual reference they make. Hansel and Gretel, I'm not even sure the original Hansel and Gretel has that in it.
But most do.
Yeah.
They leave the food trail behind and it gets eaten because animals eat food, you dumb kids.
Either way, I'm pretty sure that's a newer story than
that's weird to me.
The Minotaur. Of course, the Minotaur also turned up on Doctor Who later on. I don't know if you've gotten there, but
no.
there's a Minotaur fairly recently. So Ian does not consider using his own clothing.
Well, he's already lost a tie, poor guy. I think that's all it was just like lashing out.
Well, the doctor took his tie, not Barbara.
Well, I know, so
but
it's
the doctor's
misplaced.
not there, so he has to take it from Barbara.
So now Barbara gets to take Vicky's something, and then Vicky gets to take something from the doctor.
Barbara's already killed Vicky's dog.
Yeah.
So we're all good. The circle's complete.
Well, then Vicky's gonna have to take something from the doctor.
That's next. We'll keep an eye out for that. And then we get the doctor
He's in a cell and he doesn't have a sonic screwdriver yet.
He's like kind of walking around and there's this chair and he just sits in it. He just sits in it.
And then gets caught.
But like he was already caught. I'm like, I don't understand. Why did you sit in the chair that has a big metal band that like wraps around you?
Also, he doesn't immediately notice. He sits down and it closes around him. And he like looks around some more and he like tries to stand up. He's like, oh shit.
Which like he could though.
He could easily get out of it. It wasn't like super tight.
Yeah, he's getting old. When Doctor's in that chair, a Gary Glitter shows up. I think it's the leader.
Oh yeah,
the Gary Glitter, but not the Gary Glitter.
No, it's the lead singer of the band
of the Morocks.
Yeah, Governor Lobos, I think.
Then the improv group finds the thread and they're like, well, let's follow this, and these people will help us out with the revolution. I'm sure of it.
Which is a weird assumption. But not a wrong one, I guess.
But wait, Governor Lobos does some talking. And basically what he says is that he is upset that people just want to enjoy life instead of fetishizing the conquests of their people.
Yeah, that's pretty much his deal.
Yeah, he's like, people just want to go about their day and be happy. I want people to be fucking obsessed with the past and conquest and being bad to other races and stuff. That's what I'm about. Which
is pretty much the whole of his character.
Yeah.
He's not, there's not much more to him than that.
Yeah, no, he is just that guy.
It's a really bad way to run a museum. That's all I'm saying. Just terrible.
Yeah, he's a military fetishist, and he wants everybody to be that.
And then we have my second favorite thing about this serial, other than the Doc peeking his head out of the Dalek. Is the device that is reading the doctor's thoughts.
Oh yeah, the visualizer.
The thought selection thing, yeah.
So he's sitting in this chair. Across from him is Lobos. He's got a desk, and on this desk is like a monitor. And he's asking him questions.
And he can see on the screen what the doctor's thinking.
So like the first one he asks is something about where
are your companions? He says companions.
Joe gets excited every time they use the word companions on the show.
I do.
But yeah, he asks them, and a picture of where he saw him last is popped up.
And then he shows the machine, and then he asks, how did you get here? And the doctor pictures a penny farthing. Which, for those who don't know, is a bicycle with a big wheel in the front and a little wheel in the back.
Which, why would you show... Okay, why would you show the doctor this, by the way? Like,
right.
That's just giving him, like, a heads up that, hey, you can probably fuck with this thing.
Yeah. Maybe nobody has tried before. Maybe nobody has the brain power to fuck with the thing. Maybe the doctor is a genius, which we have seen no evidence of so far. Because this is before the doctor becomes a genius. He becomes brilliant later, through experience. This is the doctor when he was young and stupid.
He's a little smart now. The problem is he thinks he's as smart as he gets.
Yeah.
Well, I guess capacity versus experience.
And then the Morocks get the TARDIS.
Yeah, but I want to talk some more about what he shows on the screen.
Yeah, because that's the best part. And he's like...
He's asking him where he's from.
It's just a shit ton of manatees.
And the doctor is picturing seals. Or something.
Yeah, seals or manatees. I'm not sure which.
I don't think it was either.
But
walruses.
I think it's
I
hilarious.
don't think it was
I don't
walruses.
know.
I didn't see any tusks. I think it was some type of seals. There's lots of types of seals. Walrus might be a type of seal. I'm not sure. Sea lion is a type of seal, I think.
I have no idea.
It doesn't make 100%
I'm upset about my lack of
sense.
knowledge of seals now.
Because before, every other time it shows pictures, and this time it showed video. And that bothered me slightly, but it was funny, so I didn't care.
He's really fascinated with seals.
The doctor just really liked seals and was able to conjure up a moving picture.
What was the next question he asked him? Because then there's like a...
I don't remember what he asked, but he shows a picture of an old-timey underwear guy.
I thought it was the doctor in old-timey underwear. That's what I thought.
No, what it is he's like, that's not your planet. Those are reptiles. He says reptilians, and I'm like...
No, he says amphibious creatures.
Amphibians, yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, and
That makes slightly more
that's
sense.
not entirely accurate. I mean, it's kind of descriptive if you take amphibious to be like a vague term, but it technically no, they are not amphibious.
Well, he's like, but then he's like, yeah, you're not amphibious. And the doctor's like, aren't I? And then it cuts to, and it's like a swimming suit. That's what it was.
It's supposed to be him.
Yeah, him in like a swimming, like an old-timey
It
bathing suit.
did not occur to me that might be him because it didn't look like him to me. It just looked like some guy in like Victorian underwear or something.
And I think it was like a Victorian bathing suit. That's what it was. Because it's like he's amphibious, so he goes swimming.
And then Lobos is sick of the doctor's bullshit, and he decides to put him on display. He's like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna put you on a thing."
Which is like, all I remember thinking during this part is like, this would make a terrible display. No one knows who these people are.
Just an old dude.
Well, he is amphibious.
Like, what's going to be on the like plaque by the exhibit? Like, what's the explanation of why these things are here?
This guy pissed me off. Circa it's 2020.
And like the doctor should not be surprised that the guy gets sick of his bullshit because he's trolling the guy and he's not really in a position of do that.
I don't think it ever occurs to the doctor that he's not in that position.
I guess not.
It's never a thought that crosses his mind, like, maybe I shouldn't say this just this second.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be tempting fate. Maybe I shouldn't be fucking with people when they've clearly got the upper hand.
Because I don't think it ever crosses his mind that he doesn't have the upper hand. At least not in this incarnation.
Which is weird because this is before he starts having the upper hand all the time. Because like in like the new Who, he always has the upper hand pretty much because he has all the experience and he usually has the sonic screwdriver. He often has some psychic paper. Like he's got the shit to get through the situation usually. Even if it seems like he doesn't, he usually has the upper hand. And when he doesn't, he will openly admit that he doesn't have the upper hand. At least after a bit. But this doctor is like, he does not have the upper hand at all, and he acts as if he does.
It doesn't even occur to him that he doesn't. He's young and stupid.
Yeah, and extremely, what's the word?
Cocky?
Well, no, that's not the word.
Penisy?
Not quite.
Arrogant?
Yes.
Arrogant. Yes, that is the
Arrogant.
word I was looking for. A word I've been called many a time, and yet couldn't recall.
But that is the end of The Dimensions of Time, and we're now in episode 3, The Search, which does not have the doctor in it because he was on vacation.
He had other shit to do.
By the way, this is my second language for those listeners who don't remember me mentioning it last time or noticed by my thick accent. I'm in fact Swedish, and English is my second language, so sometimes some words are not in immediate reach. It happens.
I will say I constantly forget that.
You have a good vocabulary, sir.
Well, sometimes it fails me.
It spells me too, and it's my first language.
It's your only language.
But I thought I figured out arrogant, so
Yeah, good job.
I'm the better man.
Yeah, I have brain gas.
So we are in the search, and we have people talking, I mean, the TARDIS crew talking about, what do we do, which we have every episode. And Barb's like, I'm tired of this, can we just do something, please?
Anything? Because talking about what are we gonna do is probably gonna lead us to, becoming exhibits.
Can I just mention, because the episode begins with the old synth poppers, the Gary Glitters don't want the young improv guys to touch the TARDIS, and there's one specific Gary Glitter guy who is a glorious ham. He chews scenery like it's gum. He chews scenery like it's a bag of chips. He chews scenery like a bone, and he is a dog. He is like a dog with a bone, and the bone is the scenery, and the dog is, well, I already mentioned who the dog was. He is a ham. He's a big, large, glorious ham. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Nope.
I adore this motherfucker. He is glorious. It's one of them.
It's one of them.
It's one of them.
The one of the guys?
It's the one who chews the scenery. The one who steals the fucking scene. The one who is extremely melodramatic. It seems that a lot of the time in these old serials, there's always one bad guy who's just really happy to be playing a bad guy.
I feel like that's pretty consistent where you're just like, he is just so excited.
Yeah, in the Aztecs, it was the butcher. He loved being the bad guy.
Your favorite?
Tagana.
And there's one of these guys who is just loving it.
He's not the one who ends up getting kind of captured, is it? Tricked into doing stuff?
I don't know, but I will mention this guy again, so I guess we'll see.
Okay.
All right.
But it's one of the Morlocks, and he is a ham. I think he's the guy who's mostly guarding stuff.
Yeah.
They're like examining the TARDIS and stuff and trying to get into it, but are having difficulty. Well, the next note I've got is Vicky, Ian, and Barbara get caught by the Morlocks.
They're eavesdropping, right?
They're dropping eaves?
Yeah, and one of the Gary Glitters sneaks up on them from behind with a gun, and he gets Vicky to hand over the rifle.
Which, by the way, I think at this point, the point where we were talking about, they were like arguing and stuff about we should do things or we should do nothing, and like Ian and Barbara are like snipping at each other, right?
Ian doesn't understand even the basic premise of the plan that was established in part 1, which is that the future can be changed. Because here he is, thinking he can't die because he saw a future self alive. Except he didn't. He saw a future self embalmed. So Barbara has to explain that he can die because he's an idiot. Still, he decides to call the gunman's bluff by evoking the old, "Your orders aren't to kill us, are they?" How are you supposed... You're just guessing at this point.
But I will say, during that point, Vicky is like leaning on the rifle, just looking super bored.
I think she's already handed it over by this point.
But yeah, at the time that they get caught, she has to hand over her rifle. But before that, when they're fighting, she's like leaning on it, just letting them bicker.
They are bickering while the guy is pointing a gun at them, and they've already handed over the
rifle.
The guy just lets them talk and plan things
For
out,
ages!
too. Yeah.
He's got the gun pointed at him, and then they're like, hang on, we're gonna go over here and talk about what we're planning.
And then Ian is like, okay, dude, hang on a second. And then he just goes action Ian on him. And he puts him in a headlock. And he tells Barbara and Vicky to run, because his character description is man, and that's the stereotypical man thing to do. He gets caught and overpowered by the other Gary Glitters, but as they drag him to the TARDIS, he overpowers them right back, knocks them out, and runs.
I love Ian so much.
Action Ian!
I love Action Ian. I love Action Ian because he's also a giant nerd.
But he didn't use his thumb, though.
No.
I know.
They've established that he can do the thumb thing, and he doesn't do the thumb thing. I mean, this is your Spock grip, man. Use it.
And he teaches it to the other Spocklights. And then they go and become Vulcans.
That's your new
That's the
headcanon?
history here.
That's my headcanon.
So this is the same universe as Star Trek, then?
Yeah, why not?
Oh,
They
so-
Didn't really jump a time track. They jumped into another show.
So this is a Star Trek episode.
Exactly.
Okay. Barbara finds a room.
And hides. Vicky gets kidnapped.
I'm proud because Barbara actually hides behind something.
Yeah, well, barely. She hides next to something.
No, she hides next to it, and then the guy comes more into the room looking for her, and then she goes behind it.
swivels
And I was
it.
like, yay! You're hiding! I'm so proud of you. You figured it out.
Okay, yeah, she made a slight bit more effort than anyone has ever made in hiding from bad guys.
And it excited me greatly.
And Vicky gets grabbed by the improv guys.
A lot of grabbing people.
Yeah, everybody gets grabbed. So they explain what happened with the doctor, but they don't explain who they are. They actually say we'll explain later.
Which Vicky is kind of okay with. Because, like, at first she's like, you guys are the ones who took the doctor at first. You guys must be the bad guys. And they're like, nah. Vicky's like, okay.
We took him for good reasons.
They're like, no, we're not the bad guys. We'll explain later. But here's what happened with the Doctor, and here's who the bad guys are. One of the Morlocks guards the TARDIS, while Ian barely hides behind it. / next to it.
Ever so barely.
And like from this point on, Ian just is like...
Is in straight badass mode.
Yeah.
He picks up a small rock and he throws it to create a diversion.
And it takes forever for that rock to land.
He grabs the Gary Glitter from behind and disarms him. No thumb trick still. And he forces the guy at gunpoint to take him to the Doctor, who is about to be kind of embalmed.
Okay, to be fair though, these are aliens. The thumb trick might not work.
That is fair. It might only work on humans. He might not want to risk it. That is a good point. I will accept that explanation. But the thumb trick only works on human characters. If we ever see a situation in which he is under threat by human characters and he could do the thumb trick and he didn't, then we'll know that the writers forgot about it. So the leader orders to release paralysis gas in case Barbara tries to sneak out. So Barbara's about to knock... Is it Daco? It's one of the... improv guys.
I honestly couldn't tell you which guy was which guy.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track of which one is which, but I think I've separated them into Barbara's buddy and Vicky's buddy. Vicky's buddy is Tor. I managed to figure out. That's her main buddy, and then the other Vicky's buddy is, I think it's Cito, and I think Daco is Barbara's buddy. So Barbara's about to knock out, I think, Daco with a stick, but he mentions her name and explains that they're Zerons and that the old ones are Morlocks. Who came from 3 light years away and changed the peaceful planet into a museum.
Which is... Why would you do that?
That is a fair question. Also, since when is the whole planet a museum?
Since now.
Maybe it's like the Super Mario Brothers movie, where it's all just vast desert and one small city, but that city happens to be a museum.
I'll buy it, but at the same time... Couldn't they have not been dicks? Couldn't they have picked a different... I mean, if there's room on this planet for a museum, like if the Zerons are just occupying a small area, can't the Morlocks just go, oh, we'll just pick this other area to build a museum?
This vast desert land.
Like, we could have just made it next door and been like, hey, neighbor, let's be peaceful. No.
They do not know how to run a museum.
They don't know.
They're really terrible at it.
They are the worst. I mean, they could get some customers. They could get people coming in and paying admission, but no, we're going to oppress them instead.
It is, like, the most ridiculous kind of evil that you can, like, think of. Like,
we're going to run an evil museum!
We're going to, like, enslave the people who are here. Because that's kind of implied, right? I think they literally say they're a slave race at one point.
Yeah, it does get mentioned once.
That they, like, work for the museum. But why do any of that? No one's even coming to the museum anyway.
Well, somebody was supposed to come to the museum. Maybe they used... The way I understand it is people used to come to the museum. Morlocks used to come to the museum, but they don't care anymore about the museum. Because they've gone on to actually... try to live fucking peaceful, normal lives. While these conservative assholes are just being like, we want people to come to the museum, and we're gonna enslave people to work at the museum, and we want people to come to the museum.
No one goes there anymore because it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's like, this place is awful.
And we're gonna trap these people, and we're gonna put them on display, and then people will come to our museum.
But all the other Morlocks are like, I've been to the museum. It's not that great.
Although I talk about how ridiculous it is, but when we went on our vacation, what was like the one place that we were told we had to go to? Is the Cherokee Museum, which is, I guess, not an altogether different situation. I mean, things awkward. Sorry.
But yeah, they gas Barbara and Decoupage.
I think it's Daco. Vicky is hanging out with the Zerons
in a Starbucks.
And she's like, hey, you guys need some weapons.
And I'm like, yeah, but we can't get weapons. She's like, sure you can.
Yeah, they're in a locked safe with an electronic brain that asks questions, to which the correct answers, if true, open the door. That's not overly complicated.
I like that because it has to be both the correct answer and true. I guess you couldn't. I guess it would know if you're just like, yeah, I'm whatever.
Yeah, it's got a lie detector as well as
you have to say the right things.
It's just as silly.
And correct is basically what they've programmed it to be correct. The Zerons are like, why do you care so much? And Vicky's like, I'll explain later.
But like, she takes She takes command pretty quickly.
She does, yeah.
Yeah. She wants a revolution. She gives a shit.
She's like the most adorable revolution starter ever, too. Like, she's just so pleased about everything that's happening.
And then Ian has taken him the Mordock guy hostage.
Yeah, he's pushing the Gary Glitter around. And then he hides when the Glorious Ham shows up. This is the Glorious Ham, the guy who shows up at this point.
Okay.
And he chews the scenery for a bit. And he's great.
What does he say?
Stuff. I don't care. He chews the scenery. I don't care what he says. I didn't pay attention. I just enjoyed the performance.
I don't know what he said either.
Stuff. It doesn't matter. It's unimportant, I think.
Probably. So let's go back to the lie detector.
Oh yeah, the Vicky and her two Xeron buddies.
They get to the vault.
And they're like just figuring it all out and Wyatt trying to figure out what can we do. This is how it works. It does this, it does that.
And that's when Vicky says, let all the questions play through without answering them.
And that's when I wrote them down.
So go back to the beginning of this episode.
To hear what they were. And then she cracks the machine open. She just opens it up.
Which it's not like locked or anything.
No, she just opens it.
And there's lights everywhere.
And she reprograms it.
Well, she starts to. But then we go back to Barbara and her improv buddy, and they both pass out because they've been gassed. So that's the end of their storyline in this
that's
episode.
A bummer.
Then we come back.
Vicky's hacking the machine, and then she steps in front of the beam that activates it.
You have to break the light beam in order to make it start asking you questions, which I loved. You have to break the light beam, then tell the truth, and then give the right answers to get a gun.
That's a triple security system.
Yeah, well, and you have to have, like, numbers and stuff.
They're very thorough.
Yeah, and we already went through what the questions were. But now it doesn't go through all the questions. Now it just asks two questions, and it's, what's your name? And she says, Vicky. And for what purpose are the arms needed? She goes, revolution! And then the armory door opens, and the Zerons are like little kids in a candy store. Yay, guns! This is a Doctor Who episode!
Let's just start passing them out.
Guns, guns, guns. Guns for everyone.
You get a gun, and you get a gun.
Speaking of guns, Ian steps before the Morag leader and threatens him with one. Take me to the doctor. Morag leader guy says it's too late because the process is in stage 2.
Dun dun dun.
Which is bullshit. Ian says, take me there anyway.
Is this also when we get the thing that you were messaging me about, that where he like says something over the intercom, or is that the next episode?
Wasn't that earlier when he said to turn on the gas?
Yeah, that was it. I just wanted to mention that because he's
mumbling.
He like screws up his line,
and then he says, "Is that clear?" And the guy is like, "Yep, that's clear." And I didn't know what the fuck is that.
Can you put the gas? Put it on the people.
Is that clear? Yep.
Got it.
All clear. Got it. And cut. Perfect. Moving on.
Take me to the doctor. They go into the room and Ian sees the doctor. He's like, "Oh my god!"
Well, but you don't see the doctor. You just see Ian's face go.
Yeah, you don't see the doctor because he's on vacation. And that is the end of The Search.
I would like to say that it's kind of inconsistent as to like who gets to give up their guns and who gets to keep them whenever two people point guns at each other. Like
it's just here's a person with a gun, another person with a gun. Oh, better give the gun. Okay, here you go. Here's the gun. Okay, now it's your turn. I have a gun too. Oh, well, now you get 3 guns. Okay, well, I have a gun. Oh, you get 4 guns.
Didn't Ian get like a classic like badass line too, where
he
like,
says something really ridiculous? Yeah,
he's like, "Killing me won't, help you any or whatever," and he's like, "Yeah, but I might enjoy it." That's
what he says. Yeah,
yeah, which is such a cliche, but whatever.
It's fun when Ian does it.
He's having fun.
And there weren't that many 80s action movies in the 60s.
Yeah. It probably wasn't that cliche.
Yeah, this is where they got it from. All of the 80s action heroes were based on Ian.
Yeah, all right.
Die Hard? Ian.
Oh, that would be such, I would watch that movie. That would be a great movie.
Die Hard's already a fantastic movie.
Commando? Ian. Terminator? Ian. Okay,
Now we are on to the last episode, the final phase!
The final phase.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ian goes into the room where the doctor is supposed to be and seems surprised to find the doctor. He's like, "Doctor!" As if he expected the doctor not to be there.
I assume he was just shocked at the state that the doctor was in, which is taking
not moving.
Well, the way he says it, it sounds like he's surprised that it is the doctor, like he was expecting someone else.
And also, I mean, it's not like the doctor's in like a terrible looking situation either. It's not like he's like deformed or anything. He's just looks like he's taking a nap.
Which is probably how he looks 90% of the time.
So the Morlocks say, oh, he's as good as dead. And Ian's like, fix it, 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 fix it. And the Morlocks say, it's impossible. And Ian's like, I have a gun. Fucking fix it.
All right, we'll try.
And the Morlocks say, nobody's ever tried. And Ian's like, first time for everything. Now I have 2 guns because I took yours, so don't try any shit. So the guy already has a gun, and Ian's like, I have a gun. Fucking fix it. And then he takes the guy's gun. After the guy says nobody's ever tried. Now, if the Morlocks are like, nobody's ever tried, how do they know that it's not going to work? Well, clearly they don't, because it's going to work. So it's like, the whole thing is just really jumbled in terms of like the messages that they're sending. Because at this point, when they say nobody's ever tried, and Ian's like, first time for everything, now they've completely deflated the entire cliffhanger from the previous episode.
Well, they do that all the time, though.
Yeah, that's the whole point of cliffhangers.
But so it's like, it's technically bad writing, right? We're all on board with the fact that that's technically bad writing. That they're basically setting it up like, oh, this is impossible, and then they go, well, it's not impossible. It's just, nobody's tried it before.
It could be impossible, probably.
Nearly
maybe.
Every cliffhanger, though, is, oh no, we're in a situation! And then the next episode, they're like, oh, we got out somehow. This is the worst thing ever. Maybe.
It's alright.
Meanwhile, the Zerons are grabbing the guns and planning to storm the fort.
And Vicky's like, peace out, yo. I gotta go find my
I
peeps.
gotta go museum. Talk to Barbara and Ian and the doctor and Dako. Tor is like, you go there with a gun, the Morlocks will know shit. And Vicky's like, handing him the gun and goes, now they won't know shit. Not in those words, but
But basically
basically that's the exchange. So Vicky's basically badassing it by going, I don't need no fucking guns.
He's like, alright, take them. I'm fine. This is fine.
Done well enough.
And Vicky was the one who earlier was like, you guys need some fucking gun.
Well, they need guns.
Yeah,
she
she's
doesn't
not
need
starting
guns.
a revolution. She's just leaving.
Yeah, she's Vicky. She don't need no fucking guns. She don't need no stinking badges.
And then, like, okay, so they're breaking, the Morlocks are breaking into the TARDIS. They've got, like, these laser gun things that are going to bust through.
Is that a laser gun? Like, I was like, is that some kind of, like, air pressure thing or power tool or...
Yeah, I don't know.
Anything you think is what it is.
Okay, it's just some piece of technology.
And then they get stopped for some reason that I don't remember why.
Yeah, another Morlock shows up and is like, yeah, you should go do another thing.
Well, okay, why? Why can't he just keep doing what he's doing?
They're supposed to go investigate something, I think. It was very unclear.
Yeah, it was just a way to stop him from harming the TARDIS.
Yeah, I don't think they really gave a lot of thought to that. Barbara is apparently not paralyzed yet, so that's another cliffhanger that just got thrown out the window. She just gets up, coughing, drags the dude past the smoke machine.
Well, this is not the first time that Barbara's done something just on, like, sheer willpower.
Yeah, but it's really, like, they don't really do any sort of... There's no event or action that just causes this. She just fucking gets up from having been lying on the floor, like, you know what? False alarm, guys.
I'm fine.
I'm okay. I'm fine. I just gotta go get stuff. And so she carries the Zeron buddy, who's also not paralyzed yet, away.
Even though they both passed out. Then the doctor is brought back to life.
Surprisingly easily. no trouble at all.
He's just kind of cold.
He's got a bit of rheumatism, I think, but other than that, he's fine.
That's not a joke. That's literally what happens.
Yeah, he has rheumatism. That's what happens when he gets cold. He's like the opposite of a sebation. But yeah, he falls out of the thing and like Ian catches him and it's kind of cute.
Yeah, and at this point I get very confused about were they freezing him or embalming him?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So and he says that his brain was working at the speed of a mechanical computer.
In the 60s.
Now, a mechanical computer is not the same thing as an electronic computer, first of all. It's mechanical. It's a different system. They are not faster than an electronic computer. Certainly not faster than a human brain. Certainly not faster than a Time Lord's brain. So when he says his brain was working at the speed of a mechanical computer, is he saying my brain was working very slowly? Or is he basically just completely
wrong,
talking nonsense about mechanical computers? Like, is this an upsell?
I think
You guys should buy mechanical computers. They're as fast as my brain.
I think he was trying to say that while he was frozen, his brain
Was slow.
Well, no, it was picking up, like, he had nothing else to do, so his brain went into, like, overdrive.
Right, so he's upselling the mechanical computer. So he's basically doing a false advertising for mechanical computers.
Maybe the mechanical computers on Gallifrey are, like, super fast.
And this is the scene that is excellent for sounds, which is the First Doctor's catchphrase is, of course, just basically speaking without opening his mouth is a big thing for the First Doctor, and this is an excellent scene for that, and I recorded all of the little weird noises that the Doctor makes in this one scene, and I sent them over, and I would be glad if you dropped them into the podcast at this point.
That was great.
After that scene, or should we talk more about that scene?
Nah.
He's bragging about his super slow, fast brain.
And he's
Slow.
really pissed that he was embalmed-ish.
Is this also where he sort of thinks he has the upper hand and then more Morocks show up?
Yeah. Like, they're like, him and Ian are both like, Ian's being cocky, badass, action hero. The Doctor's, like, talking too much, and then, like, a Morok just, like, bashes Ian over the head.
Over the head.
Yeah, there's like 3 new guys. Those are the guys who were told to investigate, maybe. Those were the guys who were breaking into the TARDIS, and they are now coming to be the cavalry, essentially.
Ian gets hit over the head so much.
And, yeah.
He's like Giles.
He falls down so many times. And then we have another situation, a series of events. Barbara gets out of the gas and into the fire. They immediately get caught by the Morocks. And then almost immediately, they get rescued by Vicky, and then the Morocks get all of them. It's like this weird, like, back and forth of who's in control. It's like, the Morocks have got Barbara, and then Vicky saves them, and then the Morocks get Vicky and Barbara, and then it keeps going back and forth, like in the span of, like,
they're safe.
5 minutes.
Oh, they're safe.
The way I've written it down is Vicky and her buddy Tor show up, and Tor shoots the Morok, who falls down. Then more Moroks show up and shoot the Zerons, who fall down. The Moroks ask Vicky where she got the gun. Vicky claims ignorance. The Moroks take Barbara and Vicky away, leaving Tor and what's his face on the other guy.
Yeah, it just keeps going back and forth, though. Like, it's confusing.
Yeah, it's a very confusing scene, and I'm not sure what the guns do exactly. Do they kill them? Do they make them fall down?
Doesn't someone, like, get shot later, and then, like, the scene jumps back to him after a while, and he just kind of gets up?
Yeah, I think this is the moment where they get shot, and when we see them again, they get up. So that's why I'm sort of asking, what the hell are those guns for? I mean, are they sleep guns? Are they stun guns? Are they paralysis rays? Like, I'm not entirely sure what those guns are supposed to be doing. But apparently they were not shooting to kill, which is considerate of the bad guys, not to kill the good guys.
Convenient.
I remember the first time they use it, too. Like, there's no... Like, they have flashing lights, but I think on the first time they used them, the flashing lights didn't happen. So the people just fell down, and I was like, I guess something happened.
No, the flashing lights happened.
Did it?
Yeah, because I remember it happened, and you were like,
And they make a noise. They're like...
The problem is that it's like a flash of light on the gun and a sound, and you're like, so he shot? That flash of light was a gunshot? Is it dead?
It's very confusing.
Yeah, it's very unclear, but the Team TARDIS is together.
But captured, right?
Yeah, they're locked in the room with the embalming / freezing machine. And Ian, whose character description is man, smashes a thing.
To be fair, though, everyone
ever
is...
so gently.
Yeah, he rips it off and he throws it on the floor and he stomps on it. The little piece, the I don't know what it is, like a control unit or something that he just tears off and throws on the floor and he stomps on it.
He almost does it like he doesn't want to.
But then everyone is pretty much like, yeah, I wish I'd have thought of that. That looks fun. I would have liked to have broken a thing.
Well, you're a man.
Well, no, Barbara says that she wants to.
Barbara says it, Vicky says it, they are like, yeah, Well, one of them was like...
Well, the doctor's like, it's pointless. They probably have more pieces anyway. And Barbara's like, yeah, but I would have liked to have done it if I had thought of it first.
There's more of those things. Like, they're attached all the way around the thing. Like, just the thing that he smashed was a piece. And there's multiple of those pieces. They could all just take one and throw it on the floor and stomp on it if they want to. But Ian already did it, so now it's going to seem like they're just copying.
Now it's not cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So the team discusses how they may have already changed the future just by interacting with people. Like, oh, we're trapped in here, now we can't change the future. Well, maybe we already did. Oh, yeah, maybe we already did. Maybe it's just gonna come together. Maybe it's still just all gonna be fine and we're not gonna do anything. We're just gonna sit here and wait, see what happens.
And they do.
Revoluting happens.
Yeah, they storm the fort, the Zerons, and they shoot a bunch of Morok guards on the way in.
Shoot them dead?
Shoot them falling down. Dako and Tor, turns out, not dead.
Yeah.
Fine.
Just, okay.
Yeah, they just get up and like, yeah, stuff. And a bit more storming happens, and the team is freed, and the museum is being dismantled. This ending is all it wraps up very...
It's very rushed.
Yeah, it's like they've spent 4 episodes, like, meandering, and the thing's taking more time than it needs to, and now that stuff is actually happening, I just get it done. So, there, it's done. It's over. We wrapped it up. It's fine, you guys. We don't need a slow denouement or an escalation. It's just it'll wrap itself up. It's fine.
And then the doctor is like, oh yeah, let me explain that weird first episode. It was a stuck thingy.
Yeah, the doctor just comes out of the TARDIS with the little thing. Like, he's been in there for like 10 seconds. He's like, oh, it was this thing.
It's the exact same explanation as the Edge of Destruction, and it makes just as much sense.
Yeah, and I think Ian is like, hey, can I look at that? And Ian's like, it's a thing. And then they go back in the TARDIS? Is that what happens?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
The doctor took a souvenir from the museum, though I don't know when or how he got it in the TARDIS. The time and space visualizer.
Which we don't know what that is yet, but I imagine it visualizes time and space, if I had to guess.
I guess we'll find out in the next episode.
And then Daleks.
Daleks!
Bum, bum, bum.
Just a random cliffhanger clip. I mean, it shows a bunch of, like, space shots, and then it cuts to the Daleks. Or one Dalek is like, I'm a Dalek. I do Dalek things. Exterminating stuff. Dalek.
And apparently they now have their own time machine.
They have a time machine
and
now.
They're following the TARDIS because they got a mad hate boner for them.
All right. Well, that's a huge development for the Daleks. That they have a time machine, because that has since become a staple of the Daleks.
I remember watching the first Dalek episode and being like, oh, they're not as advanced as I know them to be. Until I'm like, oh my god, Doctor gave them time travel, didn't he? Like, he put that idea in their heads.
Probably, yeah.
So that's a bummer.
It's all the Doctor's fault. Everything's always the Doctor's fault. No. Let's not victim blame.
But that's it. That's all of the Space Museum.
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic at the end there. They just sort of sat there and went, it'll fix itself, and then it did, and then it was over.
Although I will say that, like, everyone's sitting there waiting, and Vicky's like, it's probably going to be the Revolution, though, because, like, that's the thing I did, and then it's the Revolution, and Vicky's kind of like, what'd I say? I fixed it. You're welcome. Like, she's making faces the whole time of like, told you, I fixed it.
This is a very good Vicky serial.
As awkwardly paced as every serial ever is, or, well, so far, it's definitely a good serial for Vicky to shine. Because this is really where Vicky becomes Vicky. At least based on what I know about Vicky, which is this serial and probably the next one.
I think there was a good hint of it in the Romans.
The Romans is a good episode for Vicky.
Just her and the Doctor being funny and stuff. The Crusade kind of dropped the ball a little bit because there was that weird, like, is she a dude plotline that didn't work. But
her plotline didn't make any sense.
But like, yeah, this one she comes full force. All in all, I like this serial. I feel like the first episode had a lot of. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense, but it had like a lot of promise. It was very weird and fun. And I kind of wish it had went more along the lines of that first episode. The rest of it's just typical these guys versus these guys. But I did like the visualizer thing and the Doc just fucking with the guy. I thought that was hilarious. And the Doctor peeking out of the Dalek is great. The things I don't like is, like, the production values went way down. The costumes are terrible. The guys are wearing sneakers.
Alien sneakers? Aliens can have sneakers.
But they are not alien sneakers. Those are regular tennis shoes.
Those are guys you would see at, like, a really cheap themed restaurant.
When did Chuck Taylor Converse sneakers start coming on the market? Was this after that or before that?
I couldn't tell you.
Because, I mean, they look pretty much like those.
But yeah, I mean, I like the serial all in all. It's not the best. It starts off better than it ends, but it's got some good moments.
I think it suffered from a problem that a lot of these serials have, and that is being a serial. A lot of these concepts for these serials could be an episode. And then they have to figure out how to break it into 4 episodes, which is not really working with the type of story it is. Because this story is, the first part is they are witnessing the future, and the second part is they are trying to stop that future from happening. The second part there should not be 3 times as long as the first part. That's the kind of thing where it's like, if it were a modern Who, the first part would be like half of the episode, and then the other half of the episode is trying to prevent that future from happening.
And they don't really do much to try to prevent it. There's no, like, specific... Yeah, but I mean, there's still no, like, specific, like, okay, so
they
this happened...
They don't specifically address it, they just sort of do stuff. They get wrapped up in this typical Doctor Who episode where there's a revolution going on, which is very common in this area.
And most of the time they spend actually thinking through this problem of how do we prevent it from happening. It's just them going back and forth of, well, can we even? I don't know. Should we even try?
I lost a button. Did your shirt have a missing button when you were frozen? I don't know. I didn't pay attention.
Right. It's just like a lot of back and forth of, like, maybe we can't
Pointless
even change
stuff.
it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the most... And when they're not doing that, they're involved in another plot entirely. And it all just kind of works itself out.
You could have had that revolution plot without that seeing the future thing, and it would have been the same thing. If you're going to do that plot, you need to have them very specifically trying to avoid that future.
Right.
By doing things that, like, they've gotten clues from the future, so they're like, well, this happened, so if we do this, maybe that'll cause this to happen. But they don't. They don't do that at all.
Like, if the button thing went somewhere, where, like, he went back and is like, I do have a button.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, something specific.
Well, they couldn't go back if it was after they went...
Oh, they couldn't see them.
What they should have done was just taken off all of their clothes and burnt them.
Yeah, because there was no future where they would have done that.
They could have gone back to the TARDIS and changed back into the old-timey clothes.
Or if they did take off all their clothes and burn them, then they're just standing there like, okay, but now what if they just freeze us while we're naked? Ah, shit! Oh, dear.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some adorable moments in this serial, like the Dalek and there's some funny stuff. It just doesn't all come together.
Even, I've always said that, where it's like, even in episodes like in New Who, where it's like, this is one of my least favorite episodes, but it has my favorite all-time scene in it. Well, that happens a lot, where you're like, overall, this episode's not great, but this scene's awesome and you need to see it.
Like, oh yeah, definitely, like, the Doctor peeking out of the Dalek is, like, one of my favorite moments of all of the first Doctor. Yeah, let's give our final thoughts. I already gave my final thoughts, so up next, Vince.
Okay, well, my final thoughts, well, like I said, it suffers from the same problem as every serial, and that is, it should be an episode, not a serial. And, but the things I like about it, setting aside the pacing and the production values and the fact that it turns into one of these typical plots, is I really like that it's an episode or a serial where Vicky gets to shine. And I also like the idea they were going for, even if they didn't quite pull it off with the whole seeing the future and then trying to fix it, which of course is kind of a typical time travel plot type, but at the same time, it's a good one, and I feel like they could have pulled it off better, but I feel like what they did with it was fun to watch. I mean, it's and that one Morlock was great. So yeah, I overall I like this serial. I think it's fun. I think it's not super well executed, but it's still fun.
It's not a bad serial. It's not a fantastic serial. Overall, it's fairly generic, and that's kind of the problem with it. It's Doctor Who, so there's still stuff that's worth watching it for.
Yeah, it's definitely not the Web Planet.
Well, even the Web Planet, I think there's reasons to watch the Web Planet. There's stuff in the Web Planet
like this one, the Web Planet had good ideas that were poorly executed. The difference is the Web Planet was executed in a way that was hard to watch and hard to listen to. Specifically, it's kind of torture, whereas this serial was done in a very pleasant manner. You can watch it, and it has funny moments, and it has good character stuff, and it has development for Vicky, and it has a conflict that you might care about, even if it's not super well executed, and it has Ian, and it has. I mean, this is a good episode for Ian, and a good episode or a serial for Vicky. And for the Doctor.
Barbara doesn't do much.
No, she doesn't.
No, Barbara was very uninteresting in this serial. This was not a good Barbara serial.
I was going to say, but she's had them.
I mean,
we can't have them all.
And it's good to have a good Vicky serial because we needed one. Because she's new. So, and also, like, Ian's recently hasn't had a really good episode. He's been doing a lot of B-plot stuff that doesn't really do much. So to have him have a little bit more is pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
So it's balancing out a little bit.
I don't feel like anybody's gotten... Not since Susan left. I don't feel like it's been real unbalanced.
I'm sorry to say this, but I think the show has benefited from Susan not being a character on it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, it makes me sad, because I like Susan. I don't feel like they knew what to do with her.
I like the idea of Susan. I don't like the execution of Susan.
I don't blame the actress, I blame the writers.
I blame the writers also. I think they wrote themselves into a hole, and they hadn't figured out that character development exists. They hadn't figured out that if the character's not working, you can have them grow. You can have them have experiences that make them mature and become a more well-developed character. They hadn't figured that out. So they were just like, this is what the character is. And they were like not thinking outside of the box with the character. And that was very damaging for the show and for the character and for, what's her name, who played the character?
Caroline Ford.
Caroline Ford. I think they are getting off to a better start with Vicky, and I think the fact that they don't know character development yet, which we can't really fault them for. This was 1963. Television was a pretty new medium. Character development over series was not really a thing. It had not really been invented yet. In a way, this show was a big part of inventing character development, and they hadn't quite done it yet. So it's very good that they got off to a good start with Vicky with these first few serials, and that this early on they've established that Vicky is an active character and an intelligent character and a character who doesn't just fall down and scream a lot.
That's what drove me crazy about Susan, is she is established as an intelligent character, and then like that never comes up again. And I think a huge part of that is the fact that she's the Doctor's granddaughter. And she's always going to be... Yeah,
the thing is, they established in the first episode, they established that she's intelligent, they established that she's weird, and that never came up again. I mean, yeah, you could say it's weird to just be falling down and screaming a lot, but that's not really the interesting kind of weird.
She giggles at inappropriate things sometimes, but that's like as weird
that has always weirded me out.
But yeah, she's super smart, and then like a couple of serials later, she's like, look, cartoons!
I feel like they got really hung up on like making her like the Doctor thinks of her as a child, and I think she gets stuck in that role of that's what people think of her, and it gets very stuck there.
Yeah, and I think also these were I believe, if not entirely, then mostly male writers in the 1960s who were over a certain age and had a certain view of how to write female characters, especially a character who was in that role of the granddaughter to the main character. Like, that's a particular type of character to a writer over a certain age in the 60s, early 60s at that. I think that resulted in a very underdeveloped and uninteresting and annoying character who didn't really accomplish a whole lot other than screaming and falling over.
There's so many, like, sparks of what could have been, though. Like, there's episodes where she's like, I'm not a kid, don't treat me like a kid, and then...
Yeah, and I think Carol Ann wanted to do more. She wanted the character to develop, but they hadn't invented character development yet. And
it almost culminates nicely in the Dalek invasion of Earth.
Almost,
until they decide to make it not her decision and make it the Doctor's decision. If it had been her decision to stay, and she's like, I'm not a child anymore, this is my decision, I'm staying, That would have been great.
That would have been a good ending for the character, yeah. But that was not the nature of the writing. They had not created her as an active character. She had become a passive character, and so they wrote her passive even in what should have been her big exit, and became kind of the, I guess she's not on the show anymore. So in with that in mind, I think it's very good that Vicky is off to a better start, because that means they're not gonna write themselves into a corner of, oh right, we gotta write this character passive because that's what we've been doing. Unless they slowly start doing that and then get stuck. That could happen. It could get Flanderized, which would be unfortunate. But I'm hoping that's not gonna happen, because I like this character.
Well, I guess we'll find out
next time
when we watch and talk about The Chase. Thanks again so much for being a returning guest, Vince. Our first returning guest.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Where can people find you? I
still need to update my website, and I have reason to, now that I'm starting a podcast, because my podcast will be called The Swinglish Podcast, and my website is swinglish.news, so that's an excuse to update the website with some sort of... Well, I'm thinking it's just going to lead straight to the podcast once I know where to put the podcast, because I don't know where to host it. I'll figure it out, and I'll put it somewhere, and then it'll lead there. So that's where you'll find my podcast once I've done that. Until then, I am on Bandcamp, vincentel.bandcamp.com. I'm also on soundcloud.com/VincentEL, and on Twitter, Vincent E.L. I'm also on youtube.com/Swinglish, and I am also part of a rap duo called Eden, which can be found on youtube.com/IllEden page, or soundcloud.com/ill_Eden.
So visit every single one of those right now, you guys.
Yeah, all of them.
And then be sure to come back in a couple weeks for the Watch-A-Thon
Do I get to come back on? Can
yes!
I be on?
You can come back on. Well, not the next
not
episode.
the next one, but later.
Yeah.
Soon.
Cool.
In 1 hour, the air is to be replaced with Zephyr gas. Is that clear?
Perfect.